Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. Welcome to my channel. My name is Micah and today I'd like to talk to you about some new and recent palette releases and sort of talk you through whether I'm contemplating buying them or whether I don't want to buy them. A little bit like some of these I think I want to get, but I'm not entirely sure yet, so I also would like to have your help. And actually some people have been asking whether I could talk about some new releases on my channel, and the only releases I'm usually very excited for and that I kind of follow are eyeshadow palette releases. Not necessarily very strictly, I try to not really watch a lot of will I buy it videos. I don't really follow a lot of trend mood, I follow trend mood and those kind of Instagram accounts, but I don't really actively seek them out, let's put it that way. I try to stay away from new releases a little bit because it just makes me want to get everything and it's just not really good for my bank account, so I try not to. But there's always a couple of things that come onto my radar, either because I watch eyeshadow palette declutters or collection videos and I'm like, ooh, that looks like something I might want to get. So with that being said, I have 10 eyeshadow palettes that have just released in the past couple of months, or that are about to be released, that are rumored to be released. And I'm just going to put a picture up on the screen when I'm talking about it, and I'm going to talk to you about whether I'm interested in it or not, and why not, or why I'm interested in it. So let's just get to these palettes. So the first palette, and this is one that I've actually put into a cart on Cold Beauty and then took out and then decided not to buy, but I'm still sort of umming and ahhing about this one, and that is the Huda Beauty, the new Nude palette. I really enjoy my Desert Dusk eyeshadow palette. I really like that palette. So that's why when I saw this, I was like, oh yes, because these rosy mauvey tones, they are right up my street. I love those kind of shades. However, the only reason why I'm sort of held back is because it has two of the pressed glitters that she insists on putting in every single eyeshadow palette, it seems. They are not my favorite. There is one of them in the Huda Beauty Desert Dust palette, and I don't like that shade. It's the only one I really don't reach for. And then there's one shade in that palette that's sort of like a creamy base. That's like an eyeshadow base kind of shade, which I know, A, is going to be too dark for me. And two, I don't like having creams and powders in the same palette. The minute that happens, I sort of go I won't use it. So it's quite an expensive palette, so I'm not really sure whether I would use it enough. Also because I already have quite a few palettes that have that sort of mauve-toned, pinky-toned sort of undertone to it. But I do really like those foiled shades, the ones that have it looks almost like it has aluminum foil running through it, the veined ones. Those look stunning. I like the mattes in there as well. But it's an 18 pan eyeshadow palette, of which I already know right now that 3 of them I probably won't use. So I'm very much on the fence about whether it's going to be worth it or not. So it's a palette that really appeals to me, but at the same time I can also see a couple of downsides that make me go do I really want this? So I'm still on the fence about that one. Number 2 on my list is the Urban Decay Naked Reloaded. You know I want to get this one. I did a complete overview of all of the different Naked palettes that are out there at this moment, all 6 of them. You know I love Urban Decay for eyeshadows if you've been following me, so this is definitely going to be a yes. I already saw someone comparing it to the Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry palette, and I think that they are quite similar, but I'm very curious to see what they did with the new formula. Some of the pans seem to be a little bit bigger, so that seems to be okay as well. There seem to be more mattes than shimmers, so this Naked Reloaded is definitely something that is up my street, and that when it launches, I haven't heard a launch date yet, and probably by the time it launches here, that will probably be another 3 or 6 months later than the release in the States. But when it does, when it gets here, I will be ordering it straight away.
And then something that I didn't know was around because I didn't really hear anybody talking about it yet, but some people have gotten the Tarte Tartist Pro Remix palette. It seems to be a bit more colorful, which for Tarte is quite good, but I'm also hearing lots of mixed reviews from the people who do have it, that not all of the shades work really well. I'm not sure if it's limited edition or whether it's part of their permanent line, but I think it's good for Tarte to really be stepping up their game and trying out different color schemes because, you know, they do neutrals and they do neutrals very well, I have to say, but it's good in their line to really sort of play around with a little bit more wearable color because I think that can appeal to their audience as well. Not my cup of tea. Then something I saw floating around is the Viseart Coy palette, I think it's called. It seems to have a lot of shimmer and a lot of like glittery kind of shades. While it is pretty, this is just something that doesn't really appeal to me. If you saw my eyeshadow palette declutter, then you saw that I tried decluttering my Viseart Sultry Muse palette, which, because it is all shimmer. So the minute a palette is all shimmer or all matte, I'm just not really inspired by it as much as I should be. I ended up, by the way, after that declutter, once everything was in the box, I tried pulling out something for my cousin to give to her. And I sat there again with the palette in my hands. I was like, I can't let go of this yet. So I actually pulled it the other day to put it back into my collection because I do think it has a couple of very stunning shimmer shades. And I got rid of most of my palettes in that declutter that had all shimmer. So I was like, maybe I should have at least one palette with all shimmer. Does that even make sense? Does anybody else do that once they've decluttered their makeup collection, that they go back and go like, no, but you do need to stay. So I've been a little bit bad in that sense, but yeah, that is what happened there. But I'm not a big fan of Viseart eyeshadows. I think they're good quality, but I think they're overpriced, so I don't think I will be getting the Coy palette. Then there's another palette that has gotten onto my radar and that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about, but that really appeals to me. I have never tried anything by BH Cosmetics, and their palettes are usually quite raved about. Think of the Carly Bible palette. The Weekend Festival was all over YouTube this spring. None of the palettes they had released so far really spoke to me. I was just waiting for them to do a color story that I felt I could get on board with. And they've released such a thing right now. So now I'm like, do I want this? Do I not? I think I want to get it, but I'm definitely not going to be ordering it anytime soon. I always work with a wish list and I kind of like tick off things from my wish list. And this definitely went onto the wish list, and it's the Royal Affair eyeshadow palette. Some people are claiming that this is a little bit more cool toned, which, yay! I love a cool toned or neutral tone palette. I feel we don't get enough of them, and that's why I want to try this. The shades look really fun, and it looks like to be quite a different color story from anything I've tried. So that's why I would like to try it. It's only 16 euros on Beauty Bay, which is very, very affordable. So sometime in the future, sometime this year, I think I will buy this palette. Then there's a couple of mini palettes that have been released. There's the Natasha Denona Mini Nude, which I think is quite new. I think it was released around the holidays. And again, Natasha Denona eyeshadows, I think, are overpriced for what they are. I have the Lead Up palette. I really enjoy the color story of that, which is why I'm keeping it around. But the Mini Nude actually looks like it's a very nice curated nude eyeshadow palette. And I'm quite like, I'm a sucker for that. And I'm seeing myself eyeing up like smaller palettes a lot. Like after I've tried the Dose of Colors palettes this past 2018, I am down with just 5 shades in a palette. And so that's why this kind of appeals to me, but it's also very expensive. So this may be something I want to pick up at some point, but it's definitely not a priority for me. It's just one of those things that I'm like, oh yeah, if I were to see it in a store, and I will be hopefully traveling to a store, to a country where Natasha Denona is sold in stores sometime this year. So then I might check it out and see if I like it, but it's definitely not something that's on my priority list, but it looks very stunning. Urban Decay is also releasing some mini palettes. I haven't seen them anywhere here yet, so maybe we still get them. Usually if things are released at the end of the year, then we usually get them in like February or March, so if we get them. But I eyed these up and I was like, really, Urban Decay? Like, you haven't done these shades anywhere else yet. There are just too many repeat shades. The berry one kind of appeals to me, but I feel that I have something like that already in my collection. So for me, the mini On The Run eyeshadow palettes by Urban Decay, while very clever and I think will appeal to a lot of people who want just a small curated palette, they are not on my priority list because I already have the larger Born to Run, and I just don't really see why I would need the other ones as well. And Too Faced Pretty Rich. I was like, oh wait, did Too Faced do another holiday thing? I wasn't even aware of that until I started some people doing reviews on this. Some people seem to love it, other people seem to have decluttered it straight away, and that tells me that I need to stay a really, really long mile away from this eyeshadow palette. I think this is one of those eyeshadow palettes from Too Faced that's a bit more gimmicky, which I feel that Too Faced sometimes does. They do a ton of releases and some of them are a straight up hit, but there's also quite a few misses in there. And that's why I think that this is not something that I would want to get. Again, those pressed glitters in there, I know I won't use. If I want to use a glitter, I'll use a Stila Glitter and Glow, but these like pressed glitter shadows, they're just not really my cup of tea. And the rest of the palette is just a bit meh, really. Doesn't really inspire me. Another palette that seems to be flying a little under the radar because of course everybody started hating on Kat Von D earlier this year for very good reasons, I think, but to just boycott the brand, I'm like, is that really something that you need to do? But oh well. I have the products that I have in my collection personally, and those are the ones I like, but I'm not really looking to buy anything new from the brand. And she's released a Lolita palette, which is, again, guess what? A mauve and berry palette, which is what everybody has been doing. So I think that the Lolita palette has just gotten too late to the game, and it's just not new enough for me to really be inspired by this as well. So that's why the Lolita palette by Kat Von D isn't going to be added to my collection. Then the hyped up palette of 2018, especially in the latter half, is the Morphe and James Charles palette. I have said it many times before, I'm not a Morphe fan. I have used some of their eyeshadows before and I thought that they didn't perform very well to what I like in my eyeshadow. I did buy the Jaclyn Hill Vault, which I am enjoying a lot more than a lot of the reviews and YouTube make it seem. So I'm a little bit on the fence about this one. I think that what he's done in terms of color story is some of the best, it's one of the best color stories that Morphe has released, I think. When it comes to the issues with things being pressed pigments and staining and all of the drama that's been going on, I'm not too fussed about that. I will use anything on my eyes. I've used products that shouldn't be put on your eyes, on my eyes, and I'm absolutely fine. So makeup is all about making choices, I think, and when it comes to the Morphe James Charles palette, it's just too similar to things I already have. I just recently got the All Matte Rainbow palette from Certify, which is a Tropical Wonders palette. So all of those rainbow shades at the bottom of the palette, I have those. And then there's a bunch of neutrals, most of them warm tones, which I also already have. So I don't feel the need to go out and buy the James Charles palette because I just feel that even though the quality may be great, even though it's a one-stop shop for all of these shades, it's too big, it's too expensive, and it's just not something I'm really interested in adding to my collection. One of my biggest pet peeves about Morphe is how big their palettes are. I think if you're a makeup artist, then these kind of palettes are a dream because you have everything in one place. But I never really use makeup that way. I use makeup like a regular consumer would, so I like palettes to be a little bit more small so that I find them easier to lay them out on my table and do a look with them. I'd rather grab my rainbow palette and then a couple of neutrals to sort of make it gel that way. And then last but not least, the Lime Crime Venus XL 2. When I spotted that there was going to be a second Venus XL palette, I was like, ooh, that sounds interesting, because I really love my Venus XL that I bought last year, which is very sort of berry toned. I call it the Modern Renaissance on steroids. You've heard me say that before. And I really like the berry shades in Modern Renaissance, so to have an all berry palette, I was like, yes, this is what I was waiting for. And I really like the quality of those shades as well. But then I spotted the inside of this palette and I was like, no, just no, not my color scheme. It seems to be like peachy and greens, but just the color story of that palette is just a big, big no for me.
it's just, I have the Too Faced Sweet Peach, and I think I can do all of the looks I could do with the Lime Crime palette with my Sweet Peach palette. So I'm not really going to be buying the Lime Crime Venus XL2. So there you have it, 10 recent or future eyeshadow palette releases that I'm sort of interested in, that kind of got onto my radar. Some of them I would like to buy, but they are definitely not a priority. There's only one here that I really want to get pronto once it releases, but most of it I'm still umming and ahhing about, or they're a definite no for me. So let me know in a comment down below what eyeshadow palettes you are eyeing up, because I would love to know. And yeah, let's just see each other in a new video, shall we? So please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel. I make new videos 3 times a week on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!